Welcome back everyone. This week, I thought we'd just have a nice, relaxing sketch session. And I'm going to share with you the thoughts that go through my mind while I'm sketching this drawing. Because things that seem obvious to me definitely wouldn't have seemed obvious to me when I was learning. So it's possible that these sorts of things could be quite useful for you guys if you're just getting into art or if you're trying to push your art to that next level. So first things first, I had a basic idea in mind for this sketch, and that was that there would be a scary looking character that was scared of something that is not scary, something cute, something friendly. I started the drawing very lightly because I didn't really have a clear idea of what I wanted this drawing to look like. I was just kind of laying down some shapes that felt right for the idea, and then I wanted to sort of let my ideas come out as I was sketching. So I start loose and start very, very soft and gentle, and I wanted to slowly build up texture and volume and the idea itself all at the same time to get a really spontaneous feel. Now, I recommend that you try this sometimes because this kind of intuitive, instinctive drawing practice really brings out some very interesting ideas that even you were not expecting to see. When you just sort of make marks with some vague intention and start to shape what goes down into a cool sketch. But it's important not to put too much expectation on a sketch like this because you never know what's going to come out. It may be a disaster, and it often is. I have sketchbooks full of terrible drawings that are the result of just kind of searching with the pencil. This time, however, I got lucky. I put down a really comfortable S-shaped composition that I love to work from, and I immediately started to see the shape of a tree. So I just leaned into it. And once I'd decided on that first bit of subject matter, the next thing to do was to determine the direction that the light was coming from. And this is really important to do early on because you should not be thinking in lines here. You're thinking in volumes and values. And if you haven't decided early on which direction the lighting is coming from, you're going to have a really inconsistent looking image because you'll probably have different highlights and shadows and things kind of happening at random, which breaks the illusion of the 3D forms and really holds back a lot of sketches. Now, this may not be best practice, but to avoid those kind of problems happening regularly when I'm just sketching in this really exploratory kind of way, I tend to just default my light angle at a kind of an angle coming from the top left of the page. And I do that for so many of my sketches because it's just easy. You remember which direction the light's coming from all the time. Most of the time when we look at something, it is being lit from above, either from ceiling lights or the sun. So I feel like this is a bit of a cheat that makes sense. Now, once the direction of the lighting has been established, we just have to begin to render the forms. People often tell me that they struggle with rendering forms, and I understand. I felt exactly the same way when I started out. It seems daunting. You have this feeling in your mind that you have to render everything perfectly. And I'm not lying when I say that I used to try. I would sit there for hours trying to figure out how different materials would cast shadows on complicated forms and set myself crazy. Now, maybe it was the right thing to do. Perhaps by making my brain do those calculations time and time again for such long hours, I trained myself to not have to think about it anymore. But I don't really bother with things like that anymore. I'm more interested in making sure that the value patterns within the sketch are pleasing to view rather than accuracy. Accuracy can only get you so far. And I, for one, am a strong advocate in cheating just a little bit to make sure that the whole image looks good, because if a shadow were to be being cast across the face and that gave the drawing an aspect that I didn't desire, I don't think many people are really going to notice if it's not there. But people are going to notice if it is there and it looks bad, so just leave it out. It's your world. You can do what you want. No one's going to call you up on it. And no one's going to come along with their grading pen and put a big F on it because you messed up. just don't worry about what people think. Just draw what you think looks good. And don't send yourself too crazy trying to figure out all these cast shadows, because it's not really worth it. And I have never had someone say, hey, wow, that looks really accurate. Those shadows look super correct. It's not going to happen. Don't worry about it. A far more important thing for you to worry about would be making sure that your forms are reading correctly. So I'm drawing this little fluffy critter up in the tree, and I could use vertical strokes to get value onto the paper, but that doesn't describe the form very well, does it? It would make it feel very stiff and flat. So instead I'm using little pencil scratches that follow the contours and shapes of the critter. And you can see that I've done exactly the same thing on the tree, on all of those branches. If I'm drawing the underside of the branch, I'll use a scooping U-shaped stroke because I'm describing the underside of a cylinder. And if it's on the bottom right of that cylinder, it's going to be darker because our light is coming from the top left. It's really not that hard to do this kind of stuff, this rendering, as long as you don't get too bogged down in the minutiae, because yes, it can be incredibly complicated if you make it that way. But if you just stick to the basic principles of if it is facing the light, it is lighter. If it is facing away from the light, it is darker. And then you describe the forms with descriptive pencil marks, you can get fantastic results. I mean, that's all that I do. I don't beat my head against a wall trying to calculate the different cast shadows. Sometimes I'll put a little bit of a cast shadow in just because it's important to the composition or it's important to describe some forms, but I'm not going to go crazy with it. I'm not going to lose any sleep over getting it slightly wrong. And it's just not the most important thing to get right. The more important things to get right are the things like the expressions on the faces of the characters or the mood of the piece overall. Is it telling the story you wanted to tell? Is it hitting all the right notes? Does it make you feel the way that you wanted it to make you feel when you looked at it? And the ways that you can tell this story better are by answering smaller questions like, if it's soft, does it look soft? If it's hard, does it look hard? Does the tree look like it feels rough? In other words, does your image look like it's reading as intended? If you're having trouble getting these effects to feel right to you, there's only really one thing you can do about it, and that is to bring up reference images of the things you would like to draw and really look at them and try and understand what makes them look the way they do. How does the light interact with the surface, and how can you achieve these effects using only pencil strokes? But actually I lied. There are two ways to learn how to get these effects. And the second one is easy. Steal it. Copy me. Copy your favorite artist. Just look at what I'm doing and try and do it yourself. You're not going to get the same results. You're going to get something slightly different, and I've spoken about this before. Your own tendencies, your own inclinations are going to come through in the strokes that you make, in the subject matter that you're trying to depict. It's going to be different. So try and copy as many artists as you can. If there's something that they do that you like, just give it a try. You might learn something. Now, this image is coming to a close, and the only thing that's left to do now is to try and balance the composition just a little bit. I've got my major focal points in place, and all of the details that I add from here on out are simply there to support those focal points. These flowers will help emphasize the S-shaped composition. The flowers in the foreground continue that flow. The rocks, the leaves, everything plays its part supporting those main focal points. I hope you enjoyed listening to my thought process for creating this sketch. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment and subscribe. If you think it's really good, maybe share it with your friends. And with that, I'll see you guys later.